going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Coach Mike Dub, here with another edition of the Lockdown Defense Sports Studio. And of course, this is that time of the year. If you've been following everything NFL, you know the draft is wrapped up. Free agency is off in full swing. We've seen a couple of trades going on. We just started, or really not really just started, but mini camps are really in full swing. And we're just a few months away from training camp, which means one thing. Yes, if you followed that last week, then you know the NFL schedule was finally released. Of course, there were so many different, release videos that we could look forward to every year. All the different talk, all the different predictions, everything that goes around. It's one of the highlights of the off season, and of course, we're going to break that down for you. I'm going to break down the Washington Commanders schedule for a much long-awaited, opportunity to come back and pick up where we left off last year. Obviously, things change with the teams that we're going to play, the way the roster shakes up. So we're going to break down into what the schedule will look like, some games to look for, and also get into some predictions. So we're going to get a chance to hear from me about what we're looking for as far as wins and losses, and just a general overview as far as what you can expect from the team based on the schedule. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. First and foremost, here is the schedule. That's right. Finally, last week we were able to get this released after a lot of waiting, a lot of anticipating. It's finally here. So just a few notes that we see on the schedule that we wanted to take note of. Obviously, opening up against the Giants, always a tough game against them. Their divisional opponent. Their defense has gotten a lot better, so that's always going to be a tough matchup. Packers, that should be a good one. Look at what they did last year. Their run game added some receivers there to that mix, so that should be pretty solid. If you notice, we played the AFC West this year as well as I believe it is the AFC West and the NFC North. So two tough divisions, really, two very tough divisions. So you see a couple of games there. One thing that we see here from last year, we got the Falcons again. Last year we played them in an overtime game, great game, went down to the wire. We're going to see Phoenix again, and of course their added defense that they got. So that should be a tough one. Also, another game that we're running back this year is that Chicago game, another tough one, another close game. So both of those games went down to the wire last year. Both rookie quarterbacks at the time last year. So who knows? We may see these matchups for many years to come with Jaden Daniels going against Caleb Williams and Michael Penix, just to try to see who's the best out of the three. So those games are going to be tough. Of course, Dallas twice a year. KC, we got KC this year, so that's not going to be easy. I talked about the AFC West and how that's going to be tough matchups for us. That's a very tough division. I'll get into that a little bit more as we go into it. Rematch against the Lions. We know they got their alpha blood based on how that whole saga went down and how the divisional round ended last year in the playoffs. So that's never going to be easy. And luckily we have them at home. We don't have to go into that raucous environment, but you better believe they're going to come out ready to play. So that's definitely a game that we circle on there. And of course, running it back against the Eagles. The same thing that the Lions are looking for against us, we're looking for against the Eagles. They left the season with a bad taste in our mouth in the NFC Championship, so that should always be a good matchup. Once again, you never know what to expect when it comes down to divisional matchups. And that being said, Christmas Day, of course, we got Dallas. So we're looking forward to that one. Of course, Christmas Day, so it'll be on primetime television. Jaden Daniels getting his chance to go out and shine and do what we need to do. Of course, I felt like we owned the Cowboys last year. I think we have a much, much superior roster to them this year. But you never know in those divisional games. So looking forward to that matchup on Christmas Day. So those are just a few matchups that stand out. It's definitely going to be a tough year. And the reason why I say that, you look at how we finished last year, and what we're looking for this year. One thing that you notice a big difference with the difference of teams that we're playing is we have a much tougher schedule. So we don't see the Cardinals, the Browns, the Panthers, Titans, or the Saints that we saw last year. All teams that are pretty much in the bottom of the pack when it comes to the NFL. No game is easy in the NFL, but if you look at our schedule compared to last year's schedule, there's not really one game that you could look at and really say, yeah, that's a definite win. And of course, that's never the case in the NFL. But like I said, if you look at our schedule last year with teams like the Cardinals, the Browns, the Panthers, the Saints, Titans. Those are teams that probably won't be good this year either. They were all, not very good last year. But those are teams that I would say, for the lack of better terms, it was a good matchup for us last year. This year, we got a little bit more of our work cut out for us. So you look at teams in the NFC North, which is arguably one of the best divisions in football. And then you look at teams in the AFC West, where almost any one of those teams, with the exception of, in my opinion, of the Raiders, could make a run for a divisional title. Possibly three teams could make the playoffs. It's just tough matchups. And when you talk about the makeups of the team as well, things that are going to put us in tough positions are teams that run the ball well, teams that have good defenses as well. So if you look across the board, it's definitely some tough matchups, which is why we want to keep an eye on how we're going to do as far as in relation to where we were last year. So something to keep an eye on. That being said, when we think about our wins, like I mentioned before, I always look at how did the team fare from last year? Did we get better or did we get worse? In my opinion, I think we got better on the roster side of the ball. I think our defensive secondary improved, or will improve next year. I think the only level that we may not have, taken as big a jump as we wanted to with this year will be our defensive line and our defensive front. Linebackers, even we added some depth through the draft, but I think our defensive line may be the one area where you wanted to see improvement, and you weren't able to see as much as you wanted to. But other than that, I think we got better on offense. We added some versatility. So we'll definitely be able to win some games because we're going to have to play games in a lot of different ways. We're going to have to win games in a lot of different ways. So that being said, do I think that we will have a repeat of last year where we win, 11 plus games? I think it's going to be difficult. And I'm going to say that for two reasons. Number one, I talked about the schedule. Strength of schedule is a much tougher schedule. And the second reason is the year two for your quarterback is always going to be a little bit tougher because teams not only have film on you, they have, a way of trying to go about containing you, but also there's some teams, depending on, your division and depending on your conference, who have spent their offseason building their defense and building their rosters around addressing what you showed last year on offense. So obviously, Jaden Daniels put the league on notice last year. I think a lot of teams are going to come in with that game plan of making things a little bit tougher for him. We saw towards the end of the year, they started to take away the run game from him, try to make him a little bit more one-dimensional, keeping him in the pocket. I think we're going to see that a lot more this year. We saw teams like the Giants keep addressing their pass rush, so they're going to try to keep the pressure on them. I think there's a lot of different teams that went out and did that. And when they play the Commanders, they're definitely going to come in. We're not catching a lot of teams by surprise this year like we did last year. So I think that that's also an added level of difficulty. And for that reason, my prediction for wins this year is 10-7. 10-7. If you look at it, it's not a amazing year. Of course, like I said, it's not going to be a redo of 11 plus wins last year. But that doesn't mean that it won't be a good year for us. I think that it will be a solid year. I think that the record would not be an indication of how well we play. I think we'll probably, like I said, be a better team than we were last year, with just a little bit of a tougher schedule, harder matchups, and we're going to have to win in a lot more versatile ways. So I love the additions that we made on offense because that's going to come in handy. 10-7, I think we'll be able to be a playoff team. Depending on who we match up well with, we might be able to make a little run in the playoffs as well. So if you see this number, it's not because the Commanders got worse, or it's not because this team is going backwards or we're regressing or anything like that. Like I said, it's all circumstantial, based on the schedule, based on matchups, and then based on just the sophomore year being a little bit harder for our sophomore quarterback and that team coming together. But overall, I think that we will play well enough, like I said, to be a playoff team. I think that there's a lot of great games on the schedule and a lot of games that probably will come down to the wire, just like we saw last year. I mentioned, the Falcon game. I mentioned the Bears that we played last year. We played them again this year. Those are games that could go down to the wire, even down to the divisional games. Philly, we got them twice. I think those are games that come down to the wire. The AFC West opponents, Broncos, Chargers, all good games, could go either way. My prediction is 10-7, but it could very easily, swing the other way, and we can win 13 games, or so forth and so forth. So I don't see us slipping much further than that, barring any injuries, of course. But 10-7, I believe, is right about where we're going to be based on our schedule. But look for us to make a pretty good playoff run. So that's my prediction. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys agree. If you disagree, what's the over under on 10 wins this year? I'm looking forward to a great season, looking forward to a great schedule. And it's yours truly, Mike Dub. You can catch us on all our socials. Take care.